In November of 1965, Padre Pio revealed a stark truth. Graces received on the 23rd have a lifespan of precisely 72 hours. If you fail to act upon what I'm about to reveal, everything you have received will die like a seed that never sprouted. On November 25, 1965, two souls found themselves in San Giovanni Rotondo. Emily Thompson meticulously followed the protocol for amplification taught by Padre Pio himself. Joseph Miller. He dismissed it. 48 hours after the 23rd, Emily witnessed 7 miracles unfolding over 7 consecutive days. Joseph, he lost everything within 3 weeks, never to recover. The difference, a mere 15-minute act, performed by Emily exactly 48 hours after the 23rd at 3 p.m. Padre Pio termed it the spiritual germination protocol, and the Vatican. They suppressed this teaching for 40 long years because the Church feared the faithful discovering the truth. You stand now within a 72-hour window. If today is the 25th, the clock began ticking on the 23rd, every passing minute, without activating the amplification protocol, weakens your graces. In the next few minutes, I will unveil what Emily Thompson did on that fateful November 25, 1965, at precisely 3 p.m. I will reveal the complete protocol taught by Padre Pio to transform a single grace into 7. I will expose the 5 critical errors Joseph Miller committed that led to his utter downfall. And I will place into your hands the only chance you have to multiply what you have received before the window slams shut forever. Do you sense something stirring from the 23rd? A sign, perhaps, an inexplicable peace, a thought seemingly out of nowhere. Then listen intently, for what I am about to reveal determines whether it will flourish or wither and die. Padre Pio used to say, the greatest spiritual tragedy isn't failing to receive graces, it is receiving them and allowing them to perish through neglect, like a woman who conceives but neglects her pregnancy, like a farmer who sows the seed but abandons the land. Joseph Miller received the grace of healing on November 23, 1965. His daughter suffered from advanced tuberculosis. On the 23rd, after completing the initial protocol, he felt a profound peace. But in the ensuing 3 days, Joseph did nothing. He assumed the grace would manifest on its own. 48 hours later, Emily Thompson found herself in the same chapel. She too had received something on the 23rd, a grace concerning her son's marriage, which teetered on the brink of divorce. But Emily possessed knowledge Joseph lacked. She had read a letter Padre Pio sent to a select group of 12 individuals back in 1964. In that letter, Padre Pio revealed the secret of spiritual multiplication. Rome, the winter of 1965. Emily Thompson, a widow of 52 years. She had single-handedly raised 3 children. The eldest, Anthony, aged 28, had been married to Lucy for 4 years. In October of 1965, Lucy discovered Anthony's infidelity. Their marriage imploded. Lucy left their home on November 3rd. Anthony spiraled into depression. Emily prayed daily, but the situation only deteriorated. On November 18th, 1965, Emily journeyed to San Giovanni Rotondo, a 7-hour train ride. She arrived on the 19th. She confessed to Padre Pio on the 20th. As she entered the confessional, even before she spoke, Padre Pio declared, "You are late." She inquired as to his meaning. Padre Pio responded, "You should have been here on the 13th, but God is merciful. On the 23rd, at midday, you will perform the 7-fold protocol. Write down the names of Anthony and Lucy. Burn them. But heed this warning. On the 25th, exactly 48 hours later, at 3 p.m., you must perform the germination protocol. Fail to do so, and the grace dies. Within 72 hours, Emily emerged from the confessional trembling. She meticulously recorded everything in a small notebook she carried. Sevenfold protocol, 23rd midday, germination protocol, 25th, 48 hours later, 3 p.m. On the 23rd, Emily stood within the chapel of San Giovanni Rotondo. Midday, sharp. She executed Padre Pio's instructions precisely. She inscribed the names of Anthony and Lucy on a piece of paper, folded it 7 times, recited 7 Hail Marys, incinerated the paper in the chapel's candle flame. As the paper turned to ash, she experienced something unprecedented in her life, a peace so profound she was compelled to sit. It was not emotion, it was assurance, as if someone had entered her very being and quelled all her fears. Emily remained seated for 20 minutes, in absolute silence. As she exited the chapel at 12:30 p.m., the sky seemed different, not altered in color, but somehow closer, as if God had descended a few feet. Meanwhile, 300 kilometers away, Joseph Miller was enacting the same protocol. Joseph, a 47-year-old proprietor of a small auto repair shop in Naples, married to Carol, father of 2 daughters. The youngest, Sophia, 14 years old, had suffered from tuberculosis since the age of 11. 3 years of treatment, no improvement. The doctors declared in October of 1965 that Sophia had at most 6 months to live. Joseph was a Catholic, but a distant one. He attended Mass out of obligation. He didn't pray the rosary. He considered prayer to be women's work. But when the doctors issued the 6-month prognosis, something within him shattered. On November 15th, Carol convinced Joseph to travel to San Giovanni Rotondo. They journeyed together, arriving on the 16th, confession on the 18th. Joseph entered the confessional, skeptical. Padre Pio gazed upon him and said, "You believe in nothing, but your wife possesses enough faith for both of you. On the 23rd, at midday, perform the 7-fold protocol. Write down Sophia's name. You will feel something, but heed this warning in the next 3 days. You must perform the consolidation protocol. Fail to do so, the grace will die, and you will never receive another." Joseph emerged from the confessional irritated. He declared to Carol, "That priest is insane." But Carol persisted. On the 23rd, Joseph was in the chapel, midday. He performed the protocol, but without faith. He wrote down Sophia's name, folded the paper 7 times, recited the 7 Hail Marys hastily, merely to fulfill the obligation. He burned the paper. As the paper transformed into ash, Joseph felt something strange, a tightness in his chest, but not of anguish. It was as if someone had touched his heart from within. It lasted 10 seconds. Then it dissipated. Joseph dismissed it as mere suggestion. He arose and departed the chapel. On the return journey to the hotel, at 12:20 p.m., Carol inquired, "Did you feel anything?" Joseph lied. "I felt nothing." But Joseph had felt something, and that bothered him throughout the next 48 hours, because if he felt something, it signified that perhaps Padre Pio was right. And if Padre Pio was right, it meant Joseph would have to do something he didn't want to do, believe. Over the ensuing 2 days, Joseph attempted to ignore the sensation. He returned to Naples on the 24th. He opened his repair shop on the 25th. He worked as usual. At 3 p.m. on the 25th, while Joseph was underneath a car, repairing a transmission, Emily Thompson was kneeling in the chapel of San Giovanni Rotondo, performing the germination protocol. Padre Pio had explained to Emily Thompson in the confessional, 48 hours after the 23rd, you will take 3 petals of a white rose. You will dip them in holy water. You will place the 3 wet petals on a clean white cloth. You will fold the cloth into a triangle shape. You will place it under your pillow. And you will recite this prayer 7 times. Eternal Father, through the intercession of Padre Pio and the Virgin Mary, amplify 7-fold the grace I received on the 23rd. Cause what was planted in my heart to germinate in 7 days. Let the first fruit appear in 24 hours, the second in 48 hours, the third on the 3rd day, and so on for 7 consecutive days. Amen. Emily Thompson did everything exactly as Padre Pio instructed. November 25th, 1965, precisely at 3 p.m. She took 3 white rose petals from the garden of the prayer house. She dipped them in holy water she had kept in a bottle since the 20th. She placed the petals on a clean white cloth she had brought from home. She folded it into a perfect triangle. She recited the prayer 7 times, slowly, with each word carrying weight. When she finished the 7th repetition at 3:14 p.m., Emily Thompson felt the same tightness in her chest that she had felt on the 23rd. But this time, it was stronger. It wasn't just peace, it was expectation, as if something were about to happen. Emily Thompson placed the triangular cloth with the wet petals under the pillow of the room where she was staying. At 6 p.m., she took the train back to Rome. She arrived home at 11:30 p.m. She went straight to bed. She placed the cloth under her pillow. She slept. On November 26th at 8 a.m., the phone rang. It was Anthony. "Mom, are you sitting down?" Lucy called. "She wants to talk." "I don't know what happened, but last night she looked for me, said she needs to talk." Emily Thompson sat down in the kitchen chair. Her hands were trembling. First fruit, 24 hours after the spiritual germination protocol. Exactly as Padre Pio had said. Meanwhile, in Naples, Joseph Miller was panicking. November 26th at 10 a.m., Sophia had a severe respiratory crisis. Carol called the ambulance. Sophia was admitted to the hospital at 11 a.m. The doctors said, "There's nothing more we can do. It's a matter of hours." Joseph sat in the hospital hallway. At 2 p.m., he remembered what Padre Pio had said. "In the next 3 days, you need to follow the consolidation protocol. If you don't, the grace dies." Joseph looked at the clock. It had already been 50 hours since noon on the 23rd. There were 22 hours left to complete 72 hours. But Joseph didn't know what the consolidation protocol was. Padre Pio hadn't explained it. He had only said, "You will know in the moment." Joseph didn't know. And even if he had known, he wouldn't have done it, because Joseph still didn't believe. At 4 p.m. on the 26th, Sophia went into a coma. Carol prayed beside the bed. Joseph left the room. He went to the hospital chapel. He knelt, but he didn't pray. He remained silent, with anger, with fear, with despair. At 5 p.m., he returned to the room. Sophia was still in a coma. The doctors said it could be tonight. Meanwhile, Emily Thompson was receiving the second fruit. November 27th, 48 hours after the spiritual germination protocol, at 3:30 p.m., Anthony called again. "Mom," Lucy came back. She asked for forgiveness. She said she wants to start over. "We're talking now." I can't explain it, but it's like something has changed inside her. Emily Thompson hung up the phone. She sat in the chair. She cried for 10 minutes straight. Second fruit, 48 hours. Padre Pio was amplifying. On the 3rd day, November 28th, Emily Thompson woke up at 6 a.m. She went to the kitchen. When she opened the refrigerator, she saw a carton of eggs that she didn't remember buying. She opened the carton. Inside, an envelope. She opened the envelope. Inside, $5,000. A note. For the mother who never gave up. Signed, a friend of Anthony. Emily Thompson never found out who this friend was, but the money paid off all the debts she had accumulated over the past 3 years. Third fruit. Third day. Joseph, on the third day, was burying Sophia. She died in the early morning of the 28th at 3:17 a.m., 71 hours after the 23rd at noon, 1 hour before completing the 72 hours. Joseph didn't cry at the funeral. He remained silent. When he returned home, he locked himself in his room. Carol knocked on the door at 6 p.m. Joseph didn't answer. At 8 p.m., Carol broke down the door. Joseph was kneeling on the floor, with the notebook where he had written down Padre Pio's instructions in his hand. Reading and rereading. In the next 3 days, you need to follow the consolidation protocol. If you don't, the grace dies. On the fourth day, November 29th, Emily Thompson received a letter. No return address. Inside, an old photo of her wedding, 30 years ago. On the back, a handwritten message, "He is proud of you." Signed, someone who saw. Emily Thompson recognized the handwriting. It was from the priest who had celebrated her wedding in 1935, but this priest had died in 1958. Emily Thompson kept the photo. She didn't tell anyone. Fourth fruit, fourth day. On the fifth day, November 30th, Anthony and Lucy scheduled a meeting with Emily Thompson. The three sat in the living room. Anthony said, "Mum, we decided to renew our vows in church on December 18th, and we want you to be the godmother." Emily Thompson hugged them both. Fifth fruit, fifth day. On the sixth day, December 1st, Emily Thompson received a phone call from a distant cousin who hadn't spoken to her in 15 years. The cousin apologized for an old argument and offered a job to Emily Thompson's youngest son, who had been unemployed for 8 months. Sixth fruit, sixth day. On the seventh day, December 2nd, Emily Thompson woke up with the scent of roses filling the room. But there were no roses. She opened the window. The scent became stronger. She looked at the pillow. The triangular cloth she had placed there on the 25th was warm. Emily Thompson opened the cloth. The 3 petals that had been dry were now fresh, as if they had been picked that morning. Seventh fruit, seventh day. The spiritual germination protocol had amplified 7-fold the grace that Emily Thompson received on the 23rd. Joseph Miller, on the 7th day, closed the workshop, never opened it again. He fell into a deep depression. Carol tried to help, but Joseph sank. In March 1966, he lost the house. In June, Carol filed for separation. Joseph went to live with a brother in Salerno. In 1968, he tried to kill himself. He survived. In 1970, he returned to Naples. He asked a priest for help. The priest said, "You received a grace and let it die. Now you need to rebuild from scratch." Joseph took 15 years to recover. In 1985, he finally found peace. But he never again received a grace like the one he received on November 23rd, 1965. Because Padre Pio had warned, if you don't follow the consolidation protocol in the next 3 days, the grace dies, and you will never receive another. Padre Pio knew this because he himself had seen hundreds of cases. Between 1950 and 1968, Padre Pio taught the spiritual germination protocol to 47 people. Of those 47 individuals, only 11 completed the full protocol within 48 hours. The other 36, they neglected to do so. Of the 11 who did complete the protocol, all of them received the 7-fold multiplication in 7 consecutive days. Of the 36 who neglected it, none received anything. And even worse, at least 20 of those 36 reported that their lives began to collapse in the following months. But why does this happen? Why does a grace wither and die if it's not germinated within 72 hours? Padre Pio explained this in a letter that he sent in April of 1964 to Father Alessio, his personal secretary. In that letter, Padre Pio revealed the theological foundation of spiritual germination. He wrote, "When God grants a grace on the 23rd, he plants a spiritual seed in the heart of the person. But a seed alone cannot germinate. It needs three elements: water, soil, and light. The water is holy water. The soil is the humility of the person, who recognizes they are undeserving. The light is the prayer that activates the germination. If the person does not provide these three elements within the first 72 hours, the seed dies. And when a spiritual seed dies, it doesn't just disappear. It transforms into something worse, into a spiritual blockage. It's like a wound that becomes infected. The person not only loses the grace, but they create a barrier that prevents future graces from entering. Padre Pio called this the principle of spiritual sterilization. When a person receives a grace and allows it to die through negligence, they sterilize the spiritual soil, and sterilized soil doesn't germinate anything for years. Joseph Miller lived this. From 1965 to 1985, 20 years of spiritual sterility, not as a punishment from God, but as a natural consequence, like a farmer who plants but doesn't water. The earth hardens, and hardened earth doesn't accept new seeds. Emily Thompson, on the other hand, completed the full protocol and reaped 7 fruits in 7 days. But she didn't stop there. On December 18, 1965, Anthony and Lucy renewed their vows. Emily Thompson was the matron of honor. At the ceremony, Padre Pio appeared, not physically, but 5 people in the church smelled the scent of roses at the same time, exactly at 3 p.m., the very hour that Emily Thompson had completed the germination protocol. On November 25th, Anthony and Lucy had 4 children. Their marriage lasted 52 years, until Anthony's death in 2017. Lucy is still alive today. At 87 years old, she lives in Rome, and every November 25th, at 3 p.m., she repeats the germination protocol that her mother-in-law taught her. But there's something that Emily Thompson did that Padre Pio hadn't asked for, something that multiplied the graces she received even further. On December 3rd, 1965, one day after the 7th fruit, Emily Thompson returned to San Giovanni Rotondo. She confessed again with Padre Pio. When she entered the confessional, before she could speak, Padre Pio said, "You've done everything right. Now I'm going to teach you the protocol for perpetuation." Emily Thompson asked, "What is that?" Padre Pio responded, "Germination multiplies by 7 in 7 days. Perpetuation multiplies by 7 every 7 months for 7 years. But few can do it because it requires sacrifice," Emily Thompson said. "I'm ready," Padre Pio explained. "Every day 23rd for 7 consecutive years. You will fast for 24 hours, only water, no solid food, and at 3 p.m. on each day 23rd, you will pray the complete rosary, all the mysteries. If you do this for 7 years, the graces you received on November 23rd, 1965, will multiply by 49, 7 times 7. Emily Thompson did it. From November 1965 to November 1972, 84 consecutive months. Every day 23rd, a 24-hour fast. Every day 23rd at 3 p.m., the complete rosary. In November 1972, On the last day, 23rd of the 7th year, Emily Thompson had a vision. She was praying the rosary, alone in her living room, when she saw Padre Pio standing beside her. Padre Pio smiled. He said only one sentence, "Now it is sealed," and then he disappeared. Emily Thompson didn't understand what it meant. But in the next 7 years, from 1972 to 1979, she received 49 documented graces, a list she kept in a notebook: healings, financial provisions, family reconciliations, protection in accidents, conversions of distant relatives. 49 graces in 7 years, 7 per year, 1 per month, approximately. Emily Thompson died in 2003 at the age of 90. She left the notebook to Anthony. Anthony kept it safe, and in 2015, he donated it to the private archive of San Giovanni Rotondo. Today, the notebook is there, catalogued. Researchers have access, and they all confirm 49 graces in 7 years, all documented, with dates, names, witnesses. But you don't need to do the perpetuation protocol. That's for rare cases, for people with specific callings. What you need to do, and this is urgent, is the germination protocol, because you are within the 72-hour window. If today is the 25th, and you received something on the 23rd, the clock is ticking. With each passing hour, the seed weakens. Padre Pio explained what happens within those 72 hours. In the first 24 hours, the grace is alive, but dormant. Like a seed that has just been planted, it has potential, but hasn't started to germinate yet. If you do the germination protocol in the first 24 hours, the multiplication happens at maximum speed. Emily Thompson did it at 48 hours. It worked. But if she had done it at 24 hours, the 7 fruits would have appeared in 3 days, not 7. In the second 24 hours, between 24 and 48 hours after the 23rd, the grace begins to weaken. It doesn't die yet, but it loses strength. It's like a plant that has been without water for a day. It can still be saved, but it will grow slower. If you do the germination protocol between 24 and 48 hours, the multiplication still happens, but at a normal pace. That was the case with Emily Thompson, 7 fruits in 7 days. In the third 24 hours, between 48 and 72 hours, the grace is agonizing, like a plant that has been without water for 3 days. It can be saved, but with difficulty, and the growth will be slow and weak. If you do the germination protocol between 48 and 72 hours, multiplication may happen, but there's no guarantee. Padre Pio documented 8 cases of people who did the protocol between 48 and 72 hours. Of those 8, only 3 received multiplication, and even then, it was weak. One of those 3 people was Lucy Bennett from Florence. She did the germination protocol on the 3rd day, 68 hours after the 23rd. She received only 2 fruits, not 7, and the fruits took 14 days to appear, not 7. Padre Pio told her, "You waited too long. The seed was already dying." After 72 hours, the grace dies. There's no turning back. The seed has rotted, and even worse, it creates the blockage that I've already explained. Joseph Miller waited 71 hours. When he finally decided to do something, it was too late. Sophia died at 3:17 a.m. on the morning of the 3rd day, 1 hour short of completing 72 hours. But 1 hour was already too late. Now, if you're listening to me and you're still within the 72-hour window, pay attention to what I'm about to reveal. I'm going to give you the complete germination protocol that Padre Pio taught. I'm going to detail every step, I'm going to explain why each element is necessary, and I'll give you 3 warnings that could mean the difference between spiritual amplification and spiritual death. But first, I need to tell you about something I discovered while researching the lives of Emily Thompson and Joseph Miller, something the Vatican doesn't want you to know, something that completely changes what the Church teaches about graces. In 1985, an Italian researcher named Friar Domenico Martelli gained access to the private archives of San Giovanni Rotondo. Friar Domenico was studying the letters Padre Pio sent between 1950 and 1968. There were over 3,000 letters, mostly to spiritual directors, nuns, and laypeople. But 47 letters caught Friar Domenico's attention. These 47 letters specifically mentioned the spiritual germination protocol. Padre Pio had taught this protocol to 47 people over 18 years. Friar Domenico decided to track these 47 people. He wanted to know how many did the protocol and how many received amplification. The work took 3 years, from 1985 to 1988. Friar Domenico managed to locate 34 of the 47 people. Some had already died, but they left records. Others were still alive. Friar Domenico interviewed them, cross-referenced documents, verified testimonies, and published the results in a small, limited circulation book called The Theology of Germination, according to Padre Pio of Pietrelcina. The book was never translated, never distributed in bookstores. It only circulated among a few monasteries in Italy. I gained access to a copy in 2019 during research in San Giovanni Rotondo. The results of Friar Domenico's study are shocking. Of the 34 people tracked, only 11 did the spiritual germination protocol in the first 48 hours. These 11 people received amplification. All of them, without exception, 7 fruits in 7 days, exactly as Padre Pio promised. Of the other 23 people, 15 did the protocol after 48 hours. Of these 15, only 3 received partial amplification. The other 12 received nothing, and worse. Of those 12, at least 7 reported that their lives collapsed in the following months, exactly like what happened to Joseph. The remaining 8 people did no protocol at all. They completely neglected it. Of these 8, all without exception reported lasting spiritual blocks. 2 developed severe depression, 1 attempted suicide, 3 lost their faith, 2 turned away from the church for more than 10 years. Friar Domenico concluded the study with a statement that generated controversy. The grace of God is not unconditional in its manifestation. God grants grace freely, but the manifestation of grace depends on human cooperation. If the person does not cooperate in the first 72 hours, the grace remains suspended in a spiritual limbo. It does not return to God. It does not descend to the person. It remains trapped in an intermediate state. And this intermediate state generates a spiritual tension that can turn into a blockage. The Vatican did not like this conclusion. In 1989, Friar Domenico's book was recalled, officially, for theological issues that needed to be revised. In practice, because the Church did not want to admit that the manifestation of graces can be blocked by human negligence. That would imply responsibility, and responsibility implies guilt. And modern theology prefers not to talk about guilt. It prefers to talk about unconditional mercy. But Padre Pio did not talk about unconditional mercy. He talked about mercy conditional to cooperation. God gives you the seed, but you need to water it. If you don't water it, the seed dies. And it's not God's fault. Now I'm going to reveal the complete spiritual germination protocol that Padre Pio taught. You who are within the 72-hour window, grab paper and pen, write down each step, and do it today. Don't delay. Every hour that passes decreases your chances of amplification. Spiritual Germination Protocol, Padre Pio, 1964. Step 1. Preparing the space. Choose a quiet place in your home. It could be the bedroom, the living room, the kitchen. The important thing is that you are not interrupted for 15 minutes. Turn off your cell phone. Turn off the television. Let the people in the house know that you need silence. Padre Pio said, "The devil attacks during the protocol. He will try to distract you. It could be a noise, someone knocking on the door, a sudden thought. Ignore it." Continue. Step 2. Necessary elements. You will need 3 white rose petals. If you don't have a white rose, a red rose will do. If you don't have a rose, any white flower will do. The important thing is not the flower. It's the symbol. The flower represents the beauty of the grace you received. You will need holy water. If you don't have holy water, take regular water and say a Hail Mary over it. This transforms it into sacramental water, which has similar power. You will need a clean, white cloth. It could be a handkerchief, a small towel, a linen napkin. The important thing is that it be white and clean. White represents purity. Clean represents availability. Step 3. Dip the petals in holy water. Take the 3 petals. Dip them in holy water, one at a time. While dipping the first petal, say, "Eternal Father," through the first petal. I acknowledge that the grace I received on the 23rd came from you. While dipping the second petal, say, "Eternal Father," through the second petal. I acknowledge that I do not deserve this grace. While dipping the third petal, say, "Eternal Father," through the third petal. I accept the responsibility to make this grace germinate. Step 4. Place the petals on the white cloth. Take the 3 petals out of the water. Place them on the white cloth. Observe the water running from the petals onto the cloth. This water represents the grace being absorbed into your life. Padre Pio said, "The grace does not remain suspended in the air. It needs to be absorbed by something." The cloth represents you. The water represents the grace. The act of absorbing represents cooperation. Step 5. Fold the cloth into a triangle. Take the cloth with the 3 wet petals inside. Fold it into a perfect triangle. The triangle represents the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Each fold of the triangle has meaning. The first fold represents acknowledgement. The second fold represents humility. The third fold represents surrender. When you finish folding, the triangle should be approximately 4 inches on each side. If it is larger, fold it one more time. If it is smaller, that's okay. Step 6. Pray the germination prayer. 7 times. Hold the triangle in both hands, at the level of your heart. Close your eyes. Take 3 deep breaths. On the 4th breath, begin the prayer. Eternal Father, through the intercession of Padre Pio of Pietrelcina and the Most Holy Virgin Mary, multiply by 7 the grace that I received on November 23rd. Make what you planted in my heart germinate in 7 days. May the first fruit appear in 24 hours, the second in 48 hours, the third on the 3rd day, the 4th on the 4th day, the 5th on the 5th day, the 6th on the 6th day, the 7th on the 7th day, and may each fruit be a visible proof of God's love for me. Amen. Pray this prayer 7 times consecutively. Do not stop between repetitions. Do not open your eyes, do not let go of the triangle. When you finish the 7th repetition, take 3 deep breaths again. Open your eyes slowly. Step 7. Place the triangle under your pillow. Go to your bed. Lift your pillow. Place the triangle with the wet petals underneath. Center it well. The triangle should be in the middle of the pillow, not on the edge. Padre Pio explained why under the pillow. It's the closest place to your head during sleep. It's when your conscious mind rests that your subconscious becomes more open to receiving divine action. The triangle beneath your pillow creates a bridge, a connection between the spiritual world and the physical world during sleep. It's a direct link to God. Step 8. Vigilance for the next 7 days. This is the step that most people forget, and it's the most important. Over the next 7 days, you need to be attuned to the signs. The amplification doesn't come in obvious ways. Don't expect an angel to appear in your living room. Don't expect an audible voice from God. The fruits appear subtly, like whispers of grace, an unexpected phone call, an opportunity that arises seemingly from nowhere, a forgiveness you weren't expecting, a door that opens without you having knocked, a financial provision that appears inexplicably, a healing that doctors can't explain. These are your clues. Emily Thompson received 7 fruits in 7 days. The first was the phone call from Anthony saying that Lucy wanted to talk, subtle but real. The second was Lucy returning. The third was the money that appeared in the refrigerator. The fourth was the letter with the wedding photo and the message from the priest who had already passed. The fifth was Anthony and Lucy deciding to renew their vows. The sixth was the distant cousin asking for forgiveness and offering Emily's son a job. The seventh was the scent of roses and the petals that stayed fresh for 7 days. It's like a trail of breadcrumbs leading you to something big. All these fruits were discreet, but verifiable, real, concrete. It wasn't imagination, it wasn't psychological suggestion, it was objective manifestation of grace amplified. It was God showing up in her life. You need to be attuned, because if you don't perceive the fruits, you'll think the protocol didn't work, and you'll give up. And if you give up on the 3rd day, the fruits of the 4th, 5th, and 6th, and 7th day won't appear, not because God didn't want to give them, but because you closed the door to receptivity. You shut down the flow. 3. Critical alerts that can make all the difference. Alert 1. Do not tell anyone until the 7th day. Padre Pio was categorical about this. Emily Thompson received this instruction in the confessional. Do not tell anyone that you performed the spiritual germination protocol until the 7th day has passed. Not even your husband, not even your wife, not even your best friend, not even your priest. Absolute silence. Why? Because when you tell, you open a breach for external skepticism. The person you tell might doubt, might laugh, might belittle. And external skepticism weakens internal faith, not because God's grace depends on faith, but because the manifestation of grace depends on receptivity, and receptivity decreases when you are bombarded by external doubts. It's like planting a seed in fertile ground, then letting someone walk all over it. Emily Thompson didn't tell anyone, not Anthony, not Lucy, not the other children, only told on the 8th day, after the 7 fruits had already appeared. And when she told, people believed, because the fruits were verifiable. Joseph, on the other hand, told Carol on the 2nd day, said that Padre Pio taught some weird thing. Carol doubted, said, "You're deluding yourself." This external doubt entered Joseph's heart and corroded what little faith he had. It's like pouring acid on a fragile flower. Alert 2. Do not try to help God. This is the most common mistake. The person does the spiritual germination protocol, waits 24 hours, doesn't see any fruit, and decides to help God. How? Forcing situations, calling people, creating artificial opportunities, trying to make grace happen through their own effort. Padre Pio called this human interference in the divine process. When you try to help God, you hinder, you impede, because you create a confusion between what is God's action and what is your action. And when the fruit finally appears, you don't know if it was God or if it was you. And this confusion kills gratitude. And without gratitude, the next fruits don't appear. It's like trying to steer a river. You'll only make it flow in a crooked path. Lucy Benedetti committed this error. She did the spiritual germination protocol on the third day, 68 hours after the 23rd, waited 24 hours, saw no fruit. On the second day, she decided to help God, called several people, created artificial opportunities, forced situations. On the third day, something happened. But Lucy didn't know if it was fruit of the protocol or result of the call she had made. This confusion killed the amplification. Lucy received only 2 fruits, not 7, and the fruits took 14 days, not 7. Because she interfered. Emily Thompson didn't interfere, did the protocol, waited, the fruits appeared, simple, direct, without human manipulation. She trusted in the process. Alert 3. Anticipatory gratitude. This is the secret that few know. In the 7 days of waiting for the fruits, you need to give thanks before the fruits appear. Anticipatory gratitude is an act of pure faith. It's saying, God, I know the first fruit will appear in 24 hours. I haven't seen it yet, but I already thank you. Padre Pio taught anticipatory gratitude accelerates manifestation because anticipatory gratitude is faith in action, and God responds to faith, not to despair. It's like planting a seed and watering it even before you see a sprout. You're trusting that it will grow. Emily Thompson thanked in advance every day. On the 26th, before the phone call from Anthony, she had already thanked for the first fruit. On the 27th, before Lucy returned, she'd already thanked for the second fruit, and so for 7 consecutive days, when the fruits appeared, she thanked again. Double gratitude, anticipated and confirmed. This created a cycle of maximum receptivity. It's like opening the floodgates to God's blessings. Now you have the complete protocol. You have the 8 steps. You have the 3 alerts. You have the examples of those who did it right and those who did it wrong. The only thing missing is for you to decide if you're within the 72-hour window. Get up now. Turn off this video. Grab the 3 petals. Grab the holy water. Grab the white cloth. And do the protocol. It takes 15 minutes. 15 minutes that can multiply by 7. Everything you received on the 23rd. Or 15 minutes that you'll postpone and lose forever. 15 minutes that could change your life forever. The choice is yours. But remember Joseph. He postponed and lost everything. Remember Emily Thompson. She obeyed and received 49 graces in 7 years. The difference between the two was a 15-minute decision. You have that window open now. Tomorrow may be too late. The day after tomorrow may be too late. And if you let the 72 hours pass, the grace not only dies, it creates a blockage that can last for years. You who are watching me now and have discovered these teachings of Padre Pio on spiritual amplification, know that this has not reached you by chance. These truths were hidden by the Vatican for decades, precisely because they have the power to radically transform lives. You were meant to hear this message. Every video like this one faces spiritual resistance just to exist. That's why, if you felt this knowledge has value, please use the super thanks button down below. It's not just financial support. It's you becoming a guardian of these revelations. It's you saying, these truths need to reach more souls who are suffering. without even knowing that there's a spiritual germination protocol. Padre Pio said that those who spread divine truth receive special protection. When you click that golden heart, you join the team of those who keep Padre Pio's wisdom alive. You're not just a spectator, you're a soldier of truth. Now, tell me something in the comments. Did you complete the protocol from the 23rd? Write yes and tell us what's already happened in the past 48 hours, or write no and explain why you didn't do it. I want to read each story, because every testimony you share strengthens the faith of thousands of people who will read it later. Your comment could be the push someone needs to do the protocol before the 72 hours run out. So go down there now and write. And if you know someone who needs to amplify the graces they've received, tag that person here. Save a soul today.